One of the most striking features of the world around us is the remarkable diversity that is observed within communities, whether you're looking at the community of trees in a rainforest, of animals coexisting on the savanna, or at the microscale of microbial communities coexisting in the soil. My name is Jeff Gore. I am an associate professor in the physics department at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I am an experimental physicist interested in trying to understand the dynamics of complex communities of biological organisms, and in particular, laboratory microcosms, little worlds in the lab of microorganisms interacting and trying to understand what is it that controls the diversity of those communities. The coexistence of so many species in natural communities is a challenge to understand because we often think about some notion of the survival of the fittest, that the species that is perhaps most adapted to some environment should perhaps be able to drive all the other species there extinct. And if that's what's going on, then when you go out and you go on a walk, what you would observe is just a small number of species in that environment. Whereas, in fact, when you go on a hike through the rainforest, you see a remarkable diversity of species that seem to be able to survive together and coexist indefinitely. I think that my background in physics has influenced me in a number of different ways in terms of how I think about these problems of ecosystem dynamics and the diversity of communities. But perhaps the most important way in which it's influenced my work is that in physics, there's a tradition of a very strong dialogue between theory and experiment, where theory often guides which measurements or experiments one does, but then also the experiments will guide future theories. This complex interplay between theory and experiment is, I think, a really fun way of doing science, but also a way of doing science that provides a lot of insight into what's going on. As we try to learn about the rules governing, say, microbial community diversity, there's always a question about the relationship between what we discover as compared to the dynamics of communities at the macro scale, between trees or animals. And from my perspective, I think that some of the lessons that we learn for microbial communities will actually have general implications for other forms of communities. But at the same time, it's likely there are going to be some differences. And actually, both the similarities and the differences are things that we're excited to try to understand.